Since coming to college, I have yet to meet anyone who is actually a wrestling fan and still watches the product to this day. I know a few people who used to watch, back in the day, the favorite wrestlers like Booker T, Rob Van Dam, a number of people used to love watching wrestling since I've come here that I've met up to this point. I know a few kids in high school that were fans at the time that I talked to from time to time. Unfortunately, I didn't meet them until my final few months in high school, so I wasn't able to interact with them a lot more than I was. But even still, it was about a year ago today, February 25th, 2013. A couple days before that happened the whole controversy between Jack Swagger and Glenn Beck in regards to the immigrant thing with Zeb Coulter and all that kind of stuff. And I thought it was really interesting because I didn't really know of Glenn Beck all that well. I'm not really a political person up to that point. And if you can recall, obviously, Glenn Beck was trashing the WWE, Jack Swagger, Zeb Coulter for all these racist remarks they were making. Of course, they were all in kayfabe and whatever. But, Glenn Beck obviously took it seriously. He was bashing the WWE, took it to an all new level. It was absolutely insane. And it was all political based stuff and stuff like that, talking about the Tea Party and stuff like that. So I thought it was pretty funny. So I sent an email to my political teacher, my civil rights teacher, or whatever the name of the class was at the time, and he was a pretty cool guy to begin with. I liked him from the second I met him. On the first day of school or whatever, he had the coolest class and most chill guy. So I loved this class from the first moment I stepped into it in my senior year of high school last year. So I sent him this email in regards to Jack Swagger and the Glenn Beck controversy. Basically saying, I'm a wrestling fan. Thought you might find this interesting. I want to get your thoughts on it. Do you think that Glenn Beck's in the right here? Do you think that WWE's in the right? And I was explaining to him in the email how Jack Swagger and Zeb Coulter were heels, and I put bad guys, but I put heels in the parentheses, saying how that's just basically in their characters to be kind of saying that kind of stuff. So and then he got back to me and he responded to me and he said, we'll talk about this during the if you have any free time during the week. Do you have any time or whatever? And I said, yeah. And this is during spring break or whatever, during February break, the week that we had off. So I was emailing him during that point in time, and we were going to get together that Monday that we got back to school on February 25th, 2013. So we got together during my free period that Monday, and I went up to him in the hallway, and I was just pretty much abbreviating, basically the whole situation, what I said in the email. And then he said that I don't remember what his exact words were, but he basically said in a nutshell that, I basically knew what you were talking about because I'm a wrestling fan too. And I just burst out laughing. I mean, it's not every day that you find a wrestling fan. I think a week before that, I found a wrestling fan at Friendly's when I went there for dinner at one point, and my brother and I were talking wrestling or whatever about Jack Swagger, coincidentally enough, about his arrest and everything. And we were talking to someone there, and that was only a week prior to that. And you don't usually find wrestling fans in terms of like your peers and stuff, people that go to your school or maybe in your workplace or whatever, or at least where I go to school and whatever, and maybe where you go to school, there's a whole bunch of wrestling fans, hopefully your age. And I know there's a lot of kids out there that are still wrestling fans, but kids like our age, like college level, high school level, whatever. It's kind of hard to come by nowadays. So I was talking to him for like a solid 10, 15 minutes during that entire free period. It was so funny. We were talking about Jack Swagger, and he was talking about, I was very surprised to see Jack Swagger in that situation. I was very surprised to see him win the Elimination Chamber because he wasn't even on TV a few weeks ago, wasn't he? I was like, no, he was not. So when he said that, it wasn't like he was a wrestling fan back in the day. He still actively watched the product. So we were going into an in-depth conversation about that, how he didn't believe that Raw should still be 3 hours. We were talking about how he used to go to house shows back in the day, actually right where my school is now, at the TD Bank Garden, I think, right here in Boston, which is pretty cool. He used to watch Stone Cold and The Rock sing Margaritaville. He went to the 2003 Royal Rumble event with a bunch of his friends. He used to watch his shows in college. Get his buddies together and watch it on the TV in his dorm. So that's pretty sweet. He was saying how people, back in the day used to wear Stone Cold 316 t-shirts and were just walking around and with the jean shorts and everything in the 90s or whatever. And he's not that old of a guy. It's not like he's an old teacher or whatever, like in his 50s or 60s. He's probably in his early 30s, mid 30s, or something like that. So relatively recent that he's been watching, and obviously still watches to this day. So we were just going in-depth conversation about that. We were talking about Tough Enough. He said he loved Tough Enough because he loved Stone Cold, like I said before. And we were talking about how the runner-up, Luke Robinson, should have won the thing because he said he had swag. So I thought that was pretty funny. And I was telling him how I did an interview with him a couple years ago. He thought that was pretty cool. So then that's how I gave him my plug for my articles and stuff, which he actually checked out on his own time. I sent him one of my articles one time to check over because one of them, back in September of that year, before any of this ever happened, I wrote an article on Bleacher Report about the psychology of wrestlers and stuff like that. And without him knowing about it and whatever, nothing bad, of course. It was actually pretty interesting read. So I printed it out and had him read it a couple weeks later. So that was just a side note. I thought that was pretty funny too. But even still, when during our conversation, whatever he was talking about, how the only reason he still watches to this day, or at least at that point in time a year ago, was because of CM Punk. And we were talking about his pipe bomb. We were talking about how that pretty much got him back into wrestling. Because with Eddie Guerrero passing away and the whole Chris Benoit controversy, that there wasn't a lot of media attention on the WWE, and this whole Glenn Beck thing really lit a fire underneath WWE to get some more media attention going into WrestleMania. We were talking about that a lot, and he really loved CM Punk, how he was the best in the world, and all that kind of stuff. We didn't talk all that often about wrestling, even sometimes after class and whatever, because his class would be the last of mine of the day. So on my way out and whatever, after everyone already left, we'd be talking for a few minutes about whatever. I remember like the day after WrestleMania, or even a few days before WrestleMania, I remember looking at my phone and finding out that Cult of Personality would be played live, CM Punk's entrance at WrestleMania by Living Color. So I told him about that on the way out. He was psyched because obviously, like I said, he's a huge CM Punk fan. So we were talking about that for a few minutes. I thought that was pretty funny. So the following week, I think, maybe not the day after, because I wanted to talk to him the day after about WrestleMania, but we didn't have enough time. So I think I waited a few days, and when I was talking to him about it, and he said he was really hoping for, because if you can remember, WrestleMania 29 went off the air with John Cena and The Rock hugging and Cena winning the WWE title and whatever. He was saying how he wanted Cena to turn his back on Rock and turn heel and go NWO, rip off the shirt and flip off all the fans and stuff. He was just laughing while he was saying it. It was great stuff. We used to have some awesome wrestling conversations. Like I said, not all the time. Whenever I could, though. Not that much into April or May or whatever, but I definitely remember in the last few days of school, because I got out of school on June 25th of last year, a few days removed, or about a week removed from Payback, which was an amazing pay-per-view. CM Punk made his return there after taking a hiatus from the WWE. We were talking about that. That show was in Chicago. And so the day after Payback, I ran up to him and was talking about him. I was talking to him about the show, about how Rob Van Dam was announced to be coming back. He loved Rob Van Dam, so we were talking about that for a little while. We were talking about the Wyatt family, because I remember in that class, we were watching some video on some cult or something from some part of the country. I don't know. I forgot where it was from. And I related that to the Wyatt family, and he was bringing up the Godwins and how they were similar to the Wyatt family, how he was really intrigued by that. So it was some really awesome stuff. And of course, I had him sign my yearbook in the final few days of school and whatever. And I said one last goodbye to him on my graduation day on that day of June 25th, because usually when you walk out, you shake the hands of the teachers and whatever. They're waiting for you as you exit the football field or wherever you graduate. I had mine on my football field at my high school, and I didn't see him. So when I met up with my family and whatever, I was looking out for him, and I found him. So I said goodbye to him one last time, gave him a handshake. We were just talking some wrestling and whatever, which is pretty funny. And I didn't look at my yearbook. I waited until after I graduated to look at all the signatures in my yearbook, and I can not honestly name one person or whatever they wrote right now in my yearbook except for his. And he said something about wrestling. He said something about really nice meeting you or something like that, and to the best in the world. And I remember after he signed the yearbook, when I gave it to him to sign, I didn't read it, but he told me I wrote something in there that only you would understand. And he put the CM Punk arm logo thing to an the straight edge thing. So that was pretty awesome. But even so, and I've talked to him a few times since then via email and stuff. I sent him a video of Kane doing some political lecture or whatever as Glenn Jacobs, because I thought that would be something that he'd find interesting. Just talking about SummerSlam and how school was going for me and stuff like that. I have yet to go back to meet him because I didn't really want to go back to my high school, if at all, if I didn't have to. But hopefully at some point our paths cross again, because it was really cool meeting him. He was a really cool guy. As I said before, this all happened in the last final few months of school, of my high school career. Had I known earlier in like ninth, 10th, 11th grade, even early on in my senior year, it would have been that much cooler. But even still, even knowing him for those 4 months as a wrestling fan were absolutely amazing. And the whole moral of this story is basically you don't know who's going to be a wrestling fan. Your worst enemy in school, your best friend, you would probably know if your best friend watched wrestling, but a lot of kids just don't show it. You know what I mean? I don't go out wearing my John Cena t-shirt. Not that I have a John Cena t-shirt, but I don't go out wearing my wrestling t-shirts all the time. Maybe if I wear it to bed or I wear it around the dorm and whatever, around the house, then usually someone might see it or whatever. But more often than not, a lot of people don't promote the fact that they're wrestling fans, so a lot of people don't share their interest in the product. And that's understandable. I mean, it's a PG product now. A lot of people trash on it. Not a lot of, as many people as there used to be. I know a lot of adults that used to be fans. I'm talking to some teachers here that were telling me that they used to be wrestling fans, which is the most hilarious thing ever. But all that being said, though, basically, yeah, you never know who's going to be a wrestling fan. Always look around. Don't be afraid to show the fact that you are a wrestling fan. I'm not saying, like I said before, you don't have to go around walking around school, workplace, in public wearing your John Cena Hustle Loyalty Respect t-shirt or anything. I don't expect you to do that, but even still, you never really know who's going to be a wrestling fan, so always keep your eye out for those kind of people because you never know what might happen.